Hello there, and welcome to the value of everything. It is, as always, a very interesting topic of monologue today. We are going to look into the wondrous world of technology and the technology of the day, which we'll look into, which I think as I'll describe through certain different things, you're going to see that it actually is going to change the world quite rapidly. And if this technology is not used in the correct ways and is, what shall we say, is used in the wrong hands by the wrong people, then we could have certainly some kind of interesting situations which could occur, maybe even perilous situations which could occur. But yeah, let's just break it down a bit. So, drones are unmanned, sort of indirectly manned flying robots, which have got like the brilliant logistical advantage to get to places at probably a far greater speed than a man could ever get to. Probably does struggle a little bit in terms of being inside houses, but even so, I'm sure that they can advance quite rapidly to be good inside buildings and going upstairs and navigating through tunnel ways and things like that without hitting its own propellers. But in general, you would think that if you're in an open space area and you would like a good idea of what is going on the ground, a drone is going to have a better, if it's got a camera on it, is going to have a better idea of what is going on than in comparison to a man with a radio on the ground. So you do have an immense advantage with a drone. Now, another thing which we're slowly starting to realize is that not only is it some flying helicopter, remote-controlled flying helicopter, but we can attach certain robotic things to it, which can give it a certain degree of, let's say, an advantage in certain areas. So one of the nice free market ways is for it to have some kind of arm or some kind of clips to the drone, so you can get it to pick up any parcels for you and deliver it out to somebody else. So maybe eBay's probably working on a new drone ship sort of delivery system, or I know Amazon is definitely. So, and obviously this doesn't have to be limited just to arms or anything that it can pick up. Obviously, the military is obviously the first one that is going to be using it for its application, not only for spying but for bombing, for using for weapons. You could quite easily fix a gun. I was going to say laser, but yeah, maybe a laser, if the laser is powerful enough, potentially could be armed. I guess the laser sight would be armed on the drone. So yeah, you have multiple applications. Now this drone obviously is, I guess the major thing with drones is the logistical advantage that you have with it. It's got this rapid speed that it can get to in a certain area, and you will not have not many other, I guess you could have helicopters and things like that, but you won't have any other kind of technology which is going to have that kind of advancement of getting to places which are very tricky and to solve certain problems. So let's just see, because I just want to just explore on like a technological sort of battle between one side to the other, because there's always, like, once you have one area of technology which comes in, say the tank, then the warfare arena changes quite rapidly from people standing in squares or standing in lines with red coats on, and so you can specifically move your troops around like little tactical pieces. All of a sudden, you have to turn into camouflage and hide yourself away, and it becomes a lot more covert in the way that you would deal with your battles or whatever sort of things. If you're dealing with potentially, if you've got a good state and they're using drones, they may be using drones for helping out with any civil disobedience. So say if there is a violent act, there's two men punching each other's lights out, a couple of drones can come over, or one drone can come over and put on his little taser and attach the taser to the two men, and they get knocked out for a little while until some policemen can come to the aid and sweep up the pieces. And obviously, it's kind of handy. Actually, I'll go back into the warfare part, but it's kind of handy where you do not have the issue of injuring a person, having this lifelong expense to the annual budget of, say, if somebody's got a major disability and then they're unable to return back to work, so you've got to pay for them for the rest of their lives. It is a major economic advantage, particularly on the long-term front. Maybe not like sometimes it can seem a little bit more expensive initially, but once compared to just like training a man. But obviously you've got to feed them, you've got to do a number of things before that person is well trained and has the ability to do these kind of things. All right, so let's just look at warfare for a meantime. So whenever you add a new technology into the arena, there has to be some kind of like struggle, or there's going to have to be some kind of play as to how the warfare gets fought against. Now, with America fighting wars abroad, they try to apply a modern sense warfare, the sort of warfare that you would apply to, say, if they were fighting a Cold War against the Russians, but maybe if they didn't have the nuclear arsenals. So they have these massively impressive tanks and helicopters and fighter jets, which is really to fight against probably just like a slightly imposing nation that's got a little bit of armaments and things like that, but it's not really perfectly adapted to an arena where you have guerrilla warfare, where insurgents can lay IEDs and people are just basically like walking around, and the insurgents can just take their picks because this is an invading troop and they can shoot them down. Incidentally, the British used to fight this war, and what they tended to find was an easier method of fighting these kind of wars was concentration camps. I know it sounds very controversial, but if you could isolate the people in a certain domain or area, then you can restrict the supply of armaments and things like that until you can oppress the people and find out the ringleaders, and then all of a sudden you do have a certain amount of obedience in the nation, and then you can do things that way. But obviously that would be kind of expensive and immoral at the same time. But if obviously sometimes, I mean, obviously I guess the legitimacy of America being over in these Middle East countries is probably in question at the best of times anyway. But if they wanted to carry on being illegitimate, probably the methodology of concentration camps probably would have been a much more of a successful method of fighting wars over there, in comparison to being walking around in this long-winded warfare that was going to go on forevermore. However, it's possible that with the military and there's like obviously massive corporations which fund wars, and it's very profitable for them to be in war. Maybe there's certain incentive measures which are occurring there, which is keeping America sustained in some kind of war. All right, so let's go back to the situation of technological advancements. There'll be on one side, if you advance the technology, instantly you're going to potentially change the operation, the opera of war, and how it is going to play out. Now, it does seem to be that there is a little bit of a common trend in terms of the way that people over time have been a little bit more sensible in the way that they structure themselves to when faced in a battle situation. So in the old days, I could pick up a stick and then I could start running over to your tribe, and then you could take me on and knock me out, and that'll be the end sort of result of that situation. Next up, I would grab my men, and then I'll come over, and then we'll try and do a bit more damage, and then it sort of escalates in those sort of realms. But firstly, it's like a measurement of force, so we have to increase the force, increase the weapons, all of those kind of things. But nowadays, the force is so incredibly large that there's not really too much you can go beyond having this massive arsenal of nuclear weapons which can blow up everybody anyway. So that it comes to a point of it being a lot more covert and a lot more sort of secretive and underground, and less ability to damage oneself and more guerrilla warfare sort of scenarios. So the drone battle scenario ties in very much so to this modern element of a warfare which is occurring. And you potentially, like, you could see that, like, it's not totally out of the realms of possibility that potentially you could have drone battles which could occur. So you could have, and obviously one thing you got to think of with the drone is more so specifically designed to, every technology is really designed to be within the throw of another human. So if you look at staircases, a staircase is designed particularly for the human. If you look at where the light switch is, it's there for the adult. Everything is designed around the human being. So the drone is really designed around, like, if you look at it, it's pretty much like the size of a torso sort of thing. It is like quite adaptable to the environment of the humans. However, if you did have drone-on-drone battle, then you may have a different scenario playing out. You may have miniaturization, where there's smaller drones which are harder to pinpoint. Maybe you may have even these larger battleship drones which are massive and shielded and have all these miniature other drones around it to prevent any sort of damage that occurs to this drone. So it's very interesting in terms of drone-on-drone fighting, which potentially could occur if you think of technological advances of China and the technological advances of America. There's quite, and obviously China's a highly industrialized nation now. It's not like it's in the cold in terms of technology. It will know how to construct. And it's obviously producing probably the most amount of drones in the world anyway as we speak. So if you could say that there was a fight over the oppressed land of somewhere in Africa, and then America goes, oh, no, this is our land. Obviously, this is all about the covert battle operations. Then you potentially could have, rather than sending your military or sending sort of big arms and ships and things like that, you could literally just get one aircraft carrier with a hell of a lot of drones. You just release them from the air, so there's no ground or land or anything like that is required. And then you release these drones down to the ground, and obviously you can have operatives which are, when I say operatives, you have drones which are specifically designed for people management. Then you have certain drones which are, so that maybe they're taser versions. Then maybe you could have drones which are specifically designed for surveillance, so they could be very small with high-tech cameras. You could have drones which are there to defend the other drones, so they could be pretty hardcore weaponry. Maybe they've got these kind of like shotgun kind of guns which can scatter fire and take out some other weaponry. Maybe it uses its propeller blades to just smash into the other drones. Who knows what sort of armaments. They're obviously the drone on drone battles would be probably the most impressive out of all of them, because that is probably one of the areas of the arm race. So yeah, if you had that drone on drone battle, so you get the might of the Chinese army's drones and the might of the American army's drones and their technology. Obviously, you don't want to give out. Probably America's got some great technology. Probably China's got some great technology, but they want to hide it away from each other. So they probably want to use the most high tech lasers. But yeah, it's interesting how you could possibly contend that is a military force that could be carried and moved onto the ground. And I would say it's far more cheaper and more cost effective than having a load of troops over there doing the same task. If you think of the actual drone, if you was going to do an all-in-one drone, it'd be pretty impressive how you would have to have loads of camera angles watching every single point. You potentially would have to have a really high-tech battery or some kind of solar panel on it. You may even have to have, or you potentially could have a charging station solar panel in the sky anyway, so all the drones could just fly up to that point and charge from that. So it's like you could just see the amount of things which are occurring all around this drone warfare. And it would seem to me like it would be more man-orientated, other than from the command center and from maybe just controlling them and stuff like that. So you would have far less of a military requirement and more so of a technological requirement if nation states were trying to act in covert operations to take over certain nation states and things like that, and getting more sort of leniencies to one side of one nation to the other nation. You could potentially see that. And obviously, if the drones are the first things that are an easy thing to throw into the mix, it is like you could think, okay, yeah, let's get the drones in. You're not talking about big costs. Now, obviously, maybe people probably won't like a robot taking over their land, and obviously people, and obviously the one thing I have to start to point into is the George Orwell element of where people start thinking, okay, well, maybe this is a very good way to control the populace and use it on our own people. So that's obviously one of the concerns which can be used straight away. But yeah, you could see that if there was an oppressive force of drone ships in a area, you could see that people would be very pissed off with that and probably try to shoot them down off of the skies. I was just thinking another term, like imagine if you had another drone which could lock into a certain point on a high skyscraper, and it will be sort of like a sniper drone, so it sort of fixes itself, it vices itself onto the corner, and then it can start popping out different people. So you got this ridiculous force which can just come into a zone, whether it could be like I guess a rural town would be probably quite easy for a drone ship to sort of get working around. But you've got literally everything that can be carried from a military force into a drone ship force. The only major thing you might not have is the ground, and maybe slightly going through tunnels and things like that. But even that is probably not too far out of the realm of possibility. You obviously, if you want to be a real spy and doing espionage, you can't obviously be right up close. You can't be like an operative inside and know information. You might be able to see from a distance and listen from a distance, but there wouldn't be that sort of very interpersonal spy and espionage that could be carried out by the drones. So maybe if you're some kind of specialist spy, maybe your job's still going to be there for a little while from being inside the area. But yeah, you can see potentially that the military is going to be a force that's going to gradually just dwindle over time. When I talk about the military, I'm talking about the people on the ground. That's going to really definitely. I can't say that military force is going to be that prevalent in today's age. If there was ever to be a battle between man and drones, so if you said like this high-tech China or high-tech America started to have a battle against just a load of people, you can't really see that the drones are going to really do the drones are going to do a lot more damage in comparison to what people can. They're going to have heightened accuracy. They're going to have a lot more cool and calm situations where people have to work with their nerves. It is obviously the Terminator landscape, which I'm talking about here, but obviously it's not quite controlled by artificial intelligence, but more so of another nation state with certain powers and certain motives which are occurring here, which may be for good means, which may be for ill means, but obviously it is highly scary and a highly a worrying sort of scenario because not just obviously from the perspective of this imposing force, but obviously this imposing force can use it on its own people, and that's where you do have that certain heightened sense of worry. Now, it's not to say that people cannot own drones. So we can obviously buy drones right now. Obviously, you can buy toys for your kids, which are drones. They've got cameras on them. They can probably pick up little packages already. They're probably high powered. They've probably got fairly good ranges. So it's not totally out of the ordinary for us to have our own drones. And potentially, you could say to a certain extent that you may be able to have a certain level of weaponized drones in the future. Particularly if you're in the criminal gangs or anything like that. Again, that's very useful stuff for you to own. And obviously, if you're in a criminal gang and you want to stop other drug dealers from dealing on the corner of your streets, you can use your drones and hey ho, you have got that area of land. So you have that sort of thing. Obviously, one of the major reasons why Americans have this very loose gun law is the fact of if the government ever started to oppress them, they would have arms to rise up against any oppressive governments. It never gets really mentioned in the news. It's always like, oh no, we shouldn't be able to have these madmen holding these guns. But the concern obviously would be as if the madmen were in charge of all the guns. So yeah. People can obviously own drones, but obviously you would think that the opposing force, the force that has all the taxation systems and everything else, would have the highest level of armaments. But obviously, powers of individuals. Imagine if you did have some kind of competition of drones. I remember watching. I always find it fascinating. These these are land battles between one robot versus one robot. I think they call it robot warfares, and they're all land battles. But you can see the technology and how they advance in how they can fight one battle against the other, and they usually use battling rams and hammers and things like that. But you obviously could see that people can really quite easily fix a machine gun or a gun to a drone ship and then carry out atrocities. Now, obviously, this is another issue that we are coming to as well. Is in the heightened age of like mad people getting hold of guns and trying to take out atrocities, and particularly in the sense of if they're really sort of kind of want to do a lot of damage but don't want to get caught at the same time, then a drone is a fantastic method of technology. So obviously you could see that the government's saying, okay, well maybe people having drones is a bad thing, so we'd have to license out having drones because there is too much of adaptability to turn it into a weapon and yada yada yada. So you can see that thing occurring, but obviously if people wanted civil defense, if people had drones which were protecting them, then you could have an arsenal where everyone could have open carry guns, but obviously nobody starts to shoot off their own drones which are hovering behind them because they know that there's another drone that's going to shoot them back. And obviously if there's and then there's this particular arms race of drones with weaponized drones which would attack each other. So yeah, we just come down to the same thing of gun law itself. Remember, this is really sort of going in the lines of power, weaponry, who owns the weapons, who's got the technology, who's got them. If you oppress one side not to have this technology, then you do have certain distortions. You do have a ridiculous amount of power on one side to the other. And yeah, it's a lot of things which are occurring. Now, obviously, I'm a freedom lover. I'd like to have a world where there probably wasn't loads of weaponized drones flying in the sky, which were not just owned by the police, but owned by privateers as well, or individuals. But I guess it's really something that I can't necessarily avoid too much. It would be nice that if you were using drones, or there was insurance and things like that, if there was things like value systems which were kicking in, blockchain technologies and things like that, to say that if you are flying a drone, you have to get certain levels of insurance, or if your drone falls from the sky and hits somebody on the head, then the blockchain will just quite orderly say that you are due to restore that person's health, or pay the long-term costs at a certain variable rate of how much you earn and things like that. So if there was that type of morality which is occurring when it comes to drones, I would expect the insurance sector would start to emancipate the need to have these highly mechanized weaponry drones flying in the skies, and maybe these big cuddly robots instead, which were flying in the sky, which would be a lot nicer and a lot friendlier and always trying to help other human beings. So obviously you get insurance trying to take out the tough side of danger in a lot of senses. So if you think of how insurance prevents young boys from getting these very fast, cheap bangers, so these high engines and things like that, and obviously killing themselves in the process of buying these very high, because obviously you can get a very cheap, high-powered car, but the insurance is very extreme for a young man, but less so for a young woman because of the way that it is discriminatory for good reasons. On a statistic level for men. So insurance does come into the play in terms of how we approach drones, and drones can limit the way in which we can really start to go a little bit extreme, go to weaponize things and everything like that. So I would love as well, more so, an insurance scheme to start insuring ourselves if we own weapons. So if it was a private thing, people would have a high amount of insurance. If there was anybody that was killed, then the insurance system scheme would kick in. It wouldn't more so be more about licensing, but in more insurance of value. So keeping people's value at the highest levels possible. So the risk factor is removed quite rapidly. There would be a far more of an advanced way that the insurance company could detect whether certain individuals were dangerous to the populace or less dangerous to the populace. Hence why, I don't know, say if there was a geek who was really good at creating robots for different things, maybe they would potentially get given a better license. Maybe they'll be able to practice with weaponry and things like that. Whereas some kid who's recently turned 18, loves warfare and plays Call of Duty and things like that, the insurance company would go, maybe this person's a little bit softened by killing people quite a lot and things like that. So I think this is a little bit more of a risky factor with us. And there hasn't been too much of a history of this person holding power or being responsible and controlling power. So this person hasn't got a family. this person hasn't got responsibilities, things like that. So I don't think we will give him a ridiculous insurance premium to prevent him from ever getting involved in this weaponry, because the value aspect and the risk aspect of it would be too much for us. So there you go. There's a freedom way of controlling the aspects of weapons and how we can resolve issues, and how obviously the preventative measures are far better than having a ridiculous arms race where we have drones watching other drones, and there's guns pointing at other guns. And I would think that would probably be the worst case scenario. We're all walking around, and then I'm walking around with my big fat drone, and you're walking around with your big fat drone, and then I'm going to say, right, okay, come on then, let's have a battle. And then the drones, I guess, what's the drone's first move? The drone's first move could either be to shoot your opponent or to shoot the other drone. So it's like a ridiculous battle which could occur, and obviously you could have multiple weapons, all of these kind of things. It's just an absolute kind of farce of a world that you could bring yourself to. So I would imagine that there's certain things that can occur where you do have obviously arm races. There are interesting things which do occur when there are arms races. So if you think of mutually assured destruction, MAD, we start to live in a very nice world, since that there is nuclear arsenals by the major superpowers, and obviously all the major superpowers are shit scared of using them, because there's no real point of using them, because once you blow up your own government land and your tax haven, then really you just don't have anything really worth living for. You might as well just live in this continuous state of peace, because then at least you can have plenty of money, you can still play golf on the weekend, you can be interested in the ladies, all of those kind of fantastic things, and you don't have to blow up yourself at the same time. So there is, with obviously heightened level of technology, potentially, if used in a particularly free-mannered way, we potentially could have a lot more nicer people in the world. So another thing I always find is that where we have countries which do not have gun carry, so if you find, this is a lot of just light experience that I've had in these fields, but I tend to find that people, areas which do have gun carry and things like that, tend to be a little bit more friendlier than in comparison to countries which do not have any, like cities like London that do not have any gun carry. And I put it down to the certain circumstance that if I walk into a pub and I know that potentially somebody has got a gun, a weapon on them, regardless of their size or anything like that, I'm going to be very sure of myself to be friendly and to be empathetic and to be nice to everybody, so that I don't rub anybody up the wrong way, and I don't land myself in any trouble and any life-threatening trouble either. And potentially, if any trouble occurs to me, then there's somebody else out there to protect me. So, and this is a method of like thinking how, where you do have certain arm races, potentially you do have certain good things that occur. So another thing, obviously, is that once we start to say, let's protect this area of land, you now have rights to this property area, and our tribe is going to protect it. Now we do have certain graces which occur. We do have this theory that this land can be fertilized, this land can be seeded, and it can grow these beautiful crops, and we can put livestock on there, and we can build a bigger tribe. So there is these beautiful things which can occur, which we don't quite necessarily see at first, but we see potentially like this oppression or this danger or this negative consequences. But if used in the right way, in a freedom manner, in a free market sort of system, then with voluntary ideas which get applied to the system, then everyone is working on the terms of value, and obviously it's not very valuable to start decimating and destroying people. So the most valuable way is obviously to find an economy which works, which provides value for other people. And everybody comes together, and we create some beautiful system where things can be managed correctly in a proper manner, and not to have some kind of oppressive force which has a jurisdiction on all of the weaponries so that they can choose to do whatever they like with the people. So, we come to let's not obviously point as well, and I think this is one of the interesting perspectives of drones, and this, I would hope that this is probably where we're going to see drones more of the future, is in case of emergencies. In the case of an emergency, I already touched upon it a little bit earlier in terms of where we would have an emergency of a pub brawl outside, a couple of guys fist fighting on the street. You could have a drone ship or a couple of drone ships coming over and tasering the two guys so they don't cause any harm to themselves and or one to the other, and then a certain level of I guess people start to think, okay, well, what's the point of having a fight? I'm going to just get tasered in the next minute, so I don't really see much point in me getting involved in this fight. And let me just talk to my lawyers and let's just deal with it that way. So there could be a very civilizing manner in which drones can shape civil society. Also, you could think, imagine if you do have that rock climber that loses its footing and then he slips and he falls on a ledge. Well, the ambulance drone is going to be pretty handy at that stage, because not only that ambulance drone probably has got a doctor behind it who's watching and has probably got the robotic arms to do any kind of surgery on the job there and then. Potentially there's going to be carrier drones as well, so I would imagine it will be very handy to have a drone robot, or maybe a couple of drone robots, which could pick up any human and lift them up and fly them through the sky to the hospital. So, or potentially just carry out any kind of immediate surgery there and then if there's any sort of blood which is gushing out of the person or anything like that at the time. Then they can just fix that up. They can do some stitches on the job, glue things up, and hey presto, let's ship them out to the hospital there and then. Or maybe even these doctor drones are so well equipped that they can come to your house if you're feeling ill there and then and check on you, and maybe they've got all different types of lenses on them, so they can look at they can look at your cells, they can look at the DNA. If they take the blood sample, they can take a number of little factors, and they can work out certain things which are happening to you. So you don't have to have the hassle of going to the doctor anymore, and the doctor drone comes to your door and says, "Hey, how are you doing? Let me have a little check over on you. What's your problems? What's your ailments?" It has the logbook of all medical science on it. If it needs any referrals, it can go to a human person to get an extra idea. It can go to consultants. It can phone through. I guess maybe this could change the complete structure of how the medical system could work. It potentially, dependent on the way it could do things, it may be able to do slight x-rays or scanning. All depends on what is required, and you could have this amazing mobility of drones which could come to people's aids very quickly in times of need, and obviously to the convenience of people as well. So you don't have to spend half your day on your weekend going to the doctors to give you a checkup, and then obviously because you've built up all the ailments that you've had over time. You've got a bad foot, you've got a bad knee, you've got a bad shoulder, you've got problems with your gut and your lungs. You don't give them all of the issues at the same time. You just make a note on your phone or whatever else, and the drones can work out a way to come to you at your convenience, maybe while you're at work. Who knows what they could do? So this could change the way that medical science could work in a incredible manner, which I don't think really has been too explored. And obviously, this is where I talk about these different arms that could be attached to the drones. You've got thousands of different arms that could be put onto these drones, which could do like scaples, scissors, whatever, you name it. There's like these drones which I've got a Swiss Army knife of different tools which can repair things. Where we go to repairs, obviously, if your engine's broken down, you can have a drone which comes to your aid and repairs you in all these different ways, shapes, and manner. Obviously, the obvious one I'm thinking of as well is that once you do have drones which can carry and lift people around, you do have the power element which is kicking in. And obviously, I think with like Tesla using these major fuel cells and solar panels. Obviously, a car is very heavy. You can't really lift this big, massive ship and stuff like that. But if you could consider that people could be lifted quite easily, a person doesn't really weigh too much in comparison to a car. If you could have a drone or a collection of drones which have good, which obviously would have to have good flight safety records at first, then you have incredible increased mobility of people to get to different places. You have obviously a lot of fun with being flown around with your drones as well, so it'll be incredible fun just to be flown around in the air, just to see all these beautiful sights in the world, to potentially have travel. I guess you would probably need to be put into some kind of suits to stop all the wind and everything else blowing against you, but we potentially could see a different way of which travel could be adapted, and the roads on the ground could be changed in terms of how we see travel is going to take us to places. And I guess it would be incredibly interesting because more so the remote places are going to be more applicable to us now, and we can build houses which could be a lot cheaper now in very cheap areas of land, which probably which wouldn't have been accessible by roads, but now are. Like, you could get some house built on top of this, some area, and obviously you'd need the drones to help you up with all the goods to build this house as well. But you can see obviously this survey of land and this adaptability of land which is occurring with the use of drones, which is a fascinating phenomenon, which could obviously totally shape the world in which we live in. You think of all the amount of traffic that we sit in all the time and get infuriated by. Imagine your journey time to work is halved, and you can just get taken away into some little shuttle, or you can carry on sleeping and the drone still takes you into work. The drone washes you. Who knows what's going to happen in terms of our adaptability to move around the environments with these drones. Who knows, these drones may even think about trying to go out to Mars and things like that. Maybe it does give us this sense, this different perspective of our endless journey of exploration. So, and obviously you can think of as well that we could have drones which take us through the seas and things like that. Once we have some kind of capsule that we can get into, which protects us from the outside and gives us oxygen and all those beautiful life-sustaining things, so there you go. There's another technology you might want to be looking into, is capsules to put people in for drone ship carry. But yeah, so it's got to be light and got to take away the outside elements, and probably would be nice if you've got a little touchscreen in there so people can piss around with that. So yeah, so there is these amazing possibilities which are out there. I've obviously tackled the very harsh and dangerous situation of drones in terms of the weaponized drones, and drones being in charge by one massive oppressive force, which has got a monopoly on all the weaponry. That obviously is really not kind of great. Obviously, an escalation of people all owning these weaponized drones is, again, not very great either. However, in a civilized society with insurance mechanisms which can disperse the need to have ridiculously overpowered, weaponized drones, we do limit and curtail danger that occurs in society, because insurance is just basically a mechanism to assess risk, and it obviously prevents risk as well. It is a preventative measure which restricts the use of force. Obviously, an insurance company is only there to obviously it will pay out a premium once a certain level of damage is done. So it is always their incentive drive to prevent any danger or risk at every occurrence. So if you do have an insurance system, and insurance system can be combined with the blockchain technology, which assigns people to the blockchain and assigns possessions to the blockchain. So if your drone ship smashes into your building, then the blockchain technology will say, okay, well, your drone ship has cost this much. Was it insured? Yes, it was. Or if it's not insured, then the blockchain is going to say, well, you're going to be there's going to be certain litigations which are going to be caused against you now, which is probably going to cost you a little bit more. So probably if anybody had a drone in the first place, you would have to get probably drone insurance in a free market society of voluntarism. It would be it is fairly interesting how drones can adapt society, and obviously if the power is not in the wrong hands, and it's spreaded, and it is in a scheme of insurance, where this insurance company, obviously I'm just going back through the motives of the insurance company. The insurance company is going to be a thing of value, the thing of creating the most value for the most people, to lower danger, to lower risk, to lower payouts. And when we say the insurance company doesn't like payouts, obviously damage has been done. Certain levels of property damage has been done, and obviously the main key property of everybody is their bodies. So if any kind of damage has been done, obviously an insurance company is trying to limit damage which could ever happen. And obviously it's a very good progressive way of limiting damage, because it's more of a preventative measure which incentivizes and decentivizes highly powered, highly dangerous drone ships which can decimate masses of people. So it would be fascinating. So maybe, obviously, if you are... This might sound a bit crappy anyway, but if you are very rich, I would still say that an insurance company would still have a certain litigation to say that it would need a psychological analysis on that person before you can pay this ridiculous premium to have this abnormally high-powered weapon attached to a drone ship. Now, obviously, I still would say that the insurance company would still have a certain amount of morality to it, and it probably would still say, okay, well, if I'm going to insure you, I don't really want to go near this billionaire who wants this drone ship. I don't even want to get involved in this, so I'm not even going to allow you to have insurance. So I would imagine even it would go to that step. However, some potentially would. But then other insurance companies would say, okay, well, I don't think this is a very profitable company. Maybe the stock market, anybody who owns shares in that thing, maybe the news report will go out that this insurance company is allowing billionaires to own these high-powered, ridiculous, weaponized drones, and the share market the share price starts to fall. And not only just on a premium level of just a value level of what it's creating, but then the insurance company starts to work out, well, this is going to smash our stock price. The media is going to get hold of this, or the free media is going to get hold of this, and they're going to take us to the cleaners, and our shareholders are just going to walk away from us. So I don't think we should really allow any kind of insurance which puts this into place. So no insurance company will touch this thing. And this obviously happens on an individual level as well. So if that individual decides not to have insurance and gets a highly powered mechanized drone ship with a massive gun on it, People will detect what would happen. We would obviously have high technology anyway, so if we did detect that there was insurance companies would detect what is this unregistered drone ship, who's got this unregistered drone ship, and then that would there'll be certain things which would signify who it's related to and things like that, and obviously it would have to be returned at some point to its owner, and there'll be a signal that will be sent from the owner and things like that. So all of a sudden the insurance companies would detect, okay, this is what this uninsured drone is, who is attached to, what other insurances or what other business dealings they can go get involved with, and then obviously insurance would potentially spread a lot further than just your insurance for owning weapons, but it would spread to your home insurance, all these other things, to any litigation or moral questions and anything like that. So all of a sudden that person, regardless of whether he had his insured or not, would find that all of his other premiums start to smash him a little bit harder because they've realised that he's acting quite immorally by getting these high-powered drone ships and things like that. So in one way or the other, regardless if he declares that he's got this weapon or he doesn't declare that he has this weapon, insurance companies will give him a bitch slap in terms of a financial smashing in terms of the way that he does things. And obviously it could really retract the way that he does things, that he has a total ostracization of society, that people do not want to trade with him anymore because he has got this highly weaponized drone ship, which can cause a lethal amount of force to other people. So you can see where I'm coming from in this respect. Even if you did decide to turn into this madman, insurance, if given its free range to really get it connected and have property rights and blockchains and all those kind of freedom mechanisms, really can be a very good, effective measure to retract anyone's ill means and use of force. But obviously, insurance doesn't have any applicability. Law doesn't really have too much of an applicability to a government, because a government is a law to its own self. So thereby, we do have certain questions which are raised when governments have the possession of a load of lethal drones. So here we go. Yeah. So very interesting topic of discussion as always. It's obviously if the government is got some good people behind it, you would hope that the drone ships would be used for good means and things like that. But I do have worries and concerns. So it really is one of those things in terms of how we choose to have the life that we have and the governance that we have. And we really want to have that situation where people are empowered and insurance companies are empowered, rather than having, maybe not this government, but maybe the next government or the government after that, having a monopoly of force and really having a ridiculously dangerous, oppressive force which could be applied to every area. They can start to raise taxes because they've got the use of force and things like that. But I think most educated people will understand that it doesn't quite work out that way. You need a little bit of free market just to get the riches from your taxed livestock. But yeah, there you go. So yeah, certainly some interesting concepts which are being thrown into the mix there. If you do have any other interesting ideas for the drone ships, please send them our way, or just write them down or whatever. And if you've got any arguments against my theories of force with drone ships or people with drone ships, please send them in and we can look at them and deduce them and all those beautiful things. Definitely, I mean, obviously it's a bit of a gratification thing, but I would definitely think that if you buying one of those drone kits or something like that and building one your own and things like that would be a fantastic exercise to do, because I think they're going to be definitely more prevalent in our world as time progresses. So yeah, definitely like if you've got some time, just definitely look into that technology, particularly with the cameras and everything else. It is an interesting technology, and it is fascinating how it could shape and change the world that we live in, for the better and for the worst. But obviously, technology in the correct hands can do some wondrous things. Technology in the wrong hands can do some disastrous things. But it's up to us applying morality and really good reasoning to these technologies so that we do not wipe out the humanity, which is really not what we want to do. We really want to have this beautiful, flourishing humanity which lives on for as long as we can go on and find out certain truths and beautiful things and go out to outer space or inner space and turn into dark matter, whatever we're trying to do in the future. Okay, so thank you very much for your time, and we will chat at some point in the future. Goodbye.